for your testimony. My guest for the State of the Union was a gentleman from Clare, Michigan, Mr. Greg Reinerson, and I believe you had the chance to meet him before the speech that night. He's a former police officer who, along with 8 of his former colleagues on the force, saved the local bakery and donut shop from closing. And now, nearly a decade later, they've worked hard, grown their business, and it's really an American success story. They're excited about tax reform. They say it's going to help their business. They recently announced plans to open a new store in our state. And another company in my district, a printing company with 2 locations, announced bonuses are being paid to their employees' retirement accounts. And so all of this, as you would agree, is good news: higher wages, bonuses, better benefits, helping the hardworking people in our state keep more of their hard-earned money, and that's always a good thing. I want to compliment you because Treasury turned around very quickly the implementation of the withholding rate that passed as part of tax reform. And your budget asked for $397 million to help implement this new law. And I'm wondering how much of it will go towards improving better service for those who need help from the IRS, for example, hiring employees to answer phone calls of concerned constituents. And I'm sure you're already getting calls already, but how much of it will go towards improved service in that way?
Sure, thank you. So first of all, that request is a 2-year request, but that is money we need ASAP to implement this. A lot of it will go to service, some of it directly, where we'll hire more people to answer the phones, particularly during the peak of tax filing system. A lot of it will go to technology that will help interact and everything else. It was commented earlier, we have antiquated telephone systems. We want to modernize the technology so we can provide better customer service. We need to update all the forms to reflect the simpler ability to file. So there is a lot of this money will help directly and indirectly. That's a major focus of ours.
Great, thank you. And if I could shift gears a minute and talk about the question of sanctions that we've been discussing. Your department is asking for increased funding for the implementation of sanctions on hostile nations, including Russia, North Korea, and Iran. And I'm pleased to hear that you are implementing those sanctions and want to encourage you to move swiftly and decisively, because I agree with you. I do think those sanctions in the case of North Korea, as you mentioned, are bringing them to the table and have been effective. Your department's monitoring financial transactions all over the world and has the incredible task of identifying and dismantling threats to our country's financial system, including cyber attacks. I'm wondering which countries and organizations are launching the most attacks on our financial system, and what's the cost of these attacks to Americans?
So again, let me just first comment on the sanctions. We just released 2 weeks ago the largest package of sanctions that we've ever had on North Korea. So as you know, North Korea has been our #1 priority. We're now reallocating a bunch of these resources for Russia sanctions, which are going to come out very shortly. On cyber and on the banks, again, we're constantly taking in lots of information from the banks, big data dumps to look at illicit activity. In regards to cyber, I'm not comfortable mentioning which countries specifically, but I'm pretty sure you know the highlighted ones, and we're very focused on this.
And do you need increased funding to prevent these attacks? Is that something we're going to see more of in the future?
It is.
Okay. And then another question I had is, how can we improve information sharing with Department of State and other agencies to make sure sanctions are imposed effectively? It seems that there are a number of departments, agencies involved in this process, and what can we do to improve the communication there?
I actually think that works very well. I'd say, first of all, through the NSC, we meet on a regular basis, multi-times a week. We're in communication. Any of our sanctions do go through, even whether we're doing them or not, they do go through what we call an interagency clearing process of both getting the intel declassified and then seeking consent of state and others. So I think this process is working very well, both through the NSC coordinated process as well as direct conversations between myself, Secretary Tillerson, and our staff. And I also have regular meetings with Director Pompeo and other members of the national security intel areas, because we couldn't do our work without what they do.
Thank you very much.